Good morning, everyone. I had an experience while driving for a rideshare company that I wanted to briefly share. So I started the day as I usually do. I was sitting in my living room eating breakfast with the application running, waiting to get a call. Maybe 5 minutes after turning the app on, I got a ping. That's the noise my phone makes when I get a call to pick someone up, so I call it a ping. I immediately accepted the ride, and as I'm grabbing my purse and my jacket and my snacks and my other items and I'm heading to my vehicle, I noticed the location to pick up the passenger is 15 minutes away from my home. And it's a ride classification where the rider has agreed to have other passengers near him going the same general direction as him share a ride with him. For me, this means I'm paid less for the trip. Some drivers would call this a waste of time and resources and cancel the ride, but I'm more about the experience, so I head out to the passenger's pickup location. 10 minutes into the ride, I get a notification that another passenger has been added to the trip. This passenger pickup location is closer to me than the original passenger's location, so I'm rerouted to pick up this passenger first. As I'm about 1 minute away from picking up the passenger that was added second, the original passenger cancels the ride. So I guess they realized I was far from them from the start, and now with the shared option, it might take even longer for me to get to them. And I'm fine with the cancellation because I got a $3 cancellation fee, and I'm about to pick up another passenger, so the trip was worthwhile. So I pull up to a medical facility, and a gentleman in his 70s heads towards me, moving very slowly. So he sits in the back seat on the passenger side, and he attempts to buckle his seatbelt, but he's having difficulty. So I turn around to assist him, and at this point, I notice he's sweating lightly, even though it's a cold day, and his nose is slightly running. And I'm ashamed to say it, but I got a little uneasy, with all this talk about the coronavirus and other contagions. But I say an internal prayer, I put some hand sanitizer on, and we start his trip. So he tells me that he usually drives for a rideshare company as well, but he broke his foot, so he hasn't driven in a few months. I am immediately relieved because in my mind, that's why he was at the medical facility, a follow-up for his foot injury. So I get another ping to pick up another passenger. So I let the 70-year-old know, hey, we're heading to pick up someone else. And it turns out the pickup is at a nearby high school. And I'm always leery of school pickups because one of the terms of service for driving for a rideshare company is you cannot give a ride to anyone under the age of 18 without a parent or guardian present for the ride. On a side note, another one of the terms of service I always have a problem with is if a child is the height and weight and age that requires a car seat, they must be in a car seat in order to ride. And you would be surprised at the amount of individuals who take issue when you try to enforce that rule. I mean, it's the law, and I would be the one ticketed, but I digress. So lucky for me, this pickup is a passenger I've picked up before, and I've previously checked his ID, and I know he's 18. So he gets in the back seat behind the driver's side. I greet him, the 70-year-old greets him and tells him to put his seatbelt on, and he complies respectfully, which I'm grateful for because you never know these days. And this whole interaction just makes me chuckle. So we're off. The app is telling me the first drop off is the 18-year-old, and it's 15 minutes away. And as we are heading to drop off the 18-year-old at his house, the 70-year-old starts making throaty frog-like noises like every 3 seconds. And I asked him if he'd like some water or anything. And he said no, he's fine. And the noises continue. And now he's shuffling in his seat uncomfortably and he's sweating more. And I don't want to keep asking him if he needs anything. I've already asked him several times and he's responded no each time. So I look at the 18-year-old in my rear view and he looks so tense and uncomfortable, like he's praying for this ride to be over. And I feel him because I feel tense and I'm gripping the steering wheel tightly. I'm trying to avoid speeding, but I really want to get this ride over. So the noises continue. And then finally we pull up to the 18-year-old's house, and he can't get out of the car fast enough. And the 70-year-old, he asked if he can open his car door for a second. So I'm like, sure, thinking he just needs some air. And he puts both of his legs out of the car. We're parked in the street in front of the 18-year-old's house. And I can see the 18-year-old like peeking out of his curtains, probably wondering why we're still in the street outside of his house. So the 70-year-old asked for some tissue, and I had him a box of tissues. It has lotions and Vicks in it. I use it to blow my nose. Next thing I know, I hear the sound of violent, almost projectile vomiting. And I don't know why, but my first thought is, oh, he's not going to want this tissue to wipe his mouth. It has Vicks in it. So I replaced the tissue with the wet wipes. And this continues for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm surprised that my usually squeamish stomach isn't reacting to the songs of somebody violently vomiting. And I'm really concerned for the 70-year-old. He seems to be done now, and he's using the wet wipes to clean up. And so I put a plastic bag next to him so he can put the wet wipes in it and the trash in it. And I tell him he can hand me the bag back when he's done. So he cleans himself up, he closes the door, and we head towards his drop-off location, which is another 15 minutes away. And I briefly think that 18-year-old is really going to feel some type of way when he look out his window again and see a pile of vomit outside his house in the street. But that's shared ride problems. So the 70-year-old says he feels much better and he apologizes. And I tell him he has nothing to apologize for. And he's no longer making those froggy throat noises and his nose isn't running, so I'm good. So he then tells me he just finished a round of chemotherapy before I picked him up. And I immediately feel horrible because I suspected he was contagious when I was picking him up. And I was scared for myself when this man is literally fighting for his damn life. You never know what someone is going through. So the 70-year-old says, I really needed to hear that. And I know what he's talking about, even though I was lost in my own thoughts. And I guess my subconscious was listening to what was playing on the radio as well. And it was You Will Win by Jekalyn Carr. And I say, I'm glad everything aligned for you to get inspiration when you needed it. So when we arrived at his building, I got out and I walked with him. And he didn't want any help. I was just walking along beside him. I guess I wasn't ready to let him go until I knew he was cared for. And a neighbor came out the building door to help him to his apartment. And me and the neighbor, our eyes met. And we gave each other a brief nod as if to say, thank you, I got it from here. And I'm glad I didn't cancel this ride because it was too far of a pickup. I'm glad I didn't refuse this ride because I was suspicious. I needed this ride to remind myself that we need to be kind to other human beings. Sometimes we need to be selfless, and we definitely need to be compassionate because you never know what burdens someone else or struggles someone else is dealing with. Thank you for listening to my story time.
The enemy came up against your character. You will win, win. You will win, win. The enemy came up against your health. The enemy came up against your finances. The enemy came up against